Question of the day. What is your favorite game with fairly unique elements, depending on how they're used, whether it be a special way cards are used, or a special way worker placement's used, or area control was used? Let me know in the comments below what your favorite unique mechanic game is, because today we're looking at architects. No, we're not. We're looking at Viscounts of the West Kingdom. Yes, I finally learned how that word was pronounced. I've always said it Viscount like the French. Viscounts of the West Kingdom. It's a game all about the West Kingdom, that universe that has been built over the North Sea and West Kingdom, even Scythia, bit of an offshoot. See that video? Fun. But it's all about, it's a rondel. It's hard for me to describe in the upfront thoughts here. So I'll tell you what, let's just look at the overview. You've already seen the other games that come in this kind of pedigree of gaming, and then pedigree, WrestleMania, see what I did there? You will see what this game does and if you should get this over the other games in the West Kingdom or the North Sea series right now. So this is Viscounts of the West Kingdom set up for 2 players. Here you've got your personal player board. I've got mine down there with the buildings on it, but it looks something like this. These are spaces for cards to go. These are cards that you're going to use as a card-driven game that have certain symbols on them. Some of these will be the cost, also multi-use. Some of them will be the movement. So that's how much it costs to buy someone from there, but also when you play this card down, that's how many spaces you can move your Viscount, or Vicomte as the French say, because they're fancy. You also have a handful of workers out here. Now this is not a worker placement game. You're not going to be placing the workers out on to do different actions. In fact, it's more of a rondel system where this Viscount is going to be moving to these different spaces. And when he comes to those spaces, that person will then do those actions based on what they are. There's an outside track of actions and there's an inside track of actions that do 2 different things. Now, the symbols on your characters, that's going to matter for what you can do during the game. Let's go through what the main actions are, essentially the different phases of the game. First phase of the game is card management. That's when you're going to essentially be playing a new card here and shifting one off of your player board. When one shifts off, you'll take the bonus down at the bottom. Now these don't all have bonuses, but you see they have different bonuses down at the bottom. The back of the rule book does a really good job of showing what all the different symbols do in the game. We're not going to go through that here because if you've played West Kingdom or if you've played North Sea, you know that symbols are important when it comes to these. But as you place a new card down, whatever that card money value is how many spaces you can then move your Viscount in this section. So as you move your Viscount those spaces, you're going to be moving around the board. So let's just say I'm here. I have a movement of, if I were to play this one right here, I would have a movement of 2 with my Viscount. So I could go 1, 2, or I could go 1 and 2 and hit down here to the inside track. Now, why does that matter? Certain actions can only be taken on the outside track, whereas certain actions can only be taken on the inside track. Number 1, the outside track would be the trade action. You'll look at your player board and count up your symbols. If you have a certain number of the market symbols down here on your player board, you can then use the different spaces around the board. So let's just say I'm stopped here. Well, then I could trade 2, use 2 of my symbols for gold. I could also make up for it by spending silver in order to make up for the difference. So let's just say I didn't have enough at the market. Now that's as many times as you want. It's not just a 2 for 1 gold and you're done. It's if you had 6, you could get 2 gold. That's what the trade action does essentially. There's the build action too, which can only be done on the outside. Based where you're standing, there are certain spaces you can build onto the board, and you'll see them down here. The cost is based on the type of building you build, which you'll notice up here is 5, 7, or 3 symbols, which is kind of weird that those are out of order, 5, 7, 3. Point being, based on the amount of hammer symbols that you have. Now at any point you can discard, by paying the money cost, the card associated right here next to your Viscount in that section. Now this one wouldn't help us, but for instance that one has a hammer on it over there, so if I needed an extra hammer and I just happened to be standing over there, I could discard that card to get use of his symbol. Also, once you build these buildings, these symbols are going to open up, which will give you permanent bonuses to your actions. Currently we don't have any opened up. So you count up the symbols and you build based on that. You can also supplement with stone or silver. The next thing is putting workers onto the castle right here. Now this is a wonky little system. When you place workers out, it's based on this rubric here. For 1 of the royal symbol, you can do 1 worker. 2 workers is 3 symbols. 3 workers 5, 4 workers 8. The way that works is, it's a little wonky. So let's just say we went the whole hog and put 8 out here. Now we have 8 in this bottom section, or 4 workers in this bottom section. If at any point you have 3 or more workers in a section, you'll then first move one up, then move one clockwise and counterclockwise. So now you're spreading yourself out. Now again, this would technically cascade. Let's just say that I had put it here and now I move here, well, boom. Then I'm going to move up one here, and then we have more space there. The middle section is a little weird. You get the bonuses that you land on when you do it, but also there's a middle section card that gives you 5 points if you are the one who has the most workers in that middle section. Not the crux of the game, even though it's the center of the board. It is an action and a way to get points. Just know that that is a thing there. Plus, at the end of the game, you do get points based on how many workers are in each section. So just know that's another thing as well. Last thing you can do is transcribe transcribe old ancient tomes. And the way you're going to be doing that is using the cross symbol. You're going to be transcribing these based on where your Viscount is, the number that you need there. There's 3. Once you do that, you're going to take that. You instantly get the bonus listed on it. This means draw one of the deed cards over here. And once you flip the deed card, it's worth 3 points, only worth 1 to start with. Debt cards are minus 2 points. If you flip it, you gain a resource and you don't lose those 2 points. Just know that that's a thing. With the transcriptions, there are certain colored bonuses on there. You'll see them. If you're the first to transcribe 3 of a color, you gain this bonus. The bonus at the bottom left, as well as the points at the end of the game. Also, when scoring, and I don't think this is listed on here either, but when scoring at the end of the game, you score points based on set collections. So for 1 is 1, I believe it's 2 here. I'll just pull it up right here. I don't know. I don't see it on the board. Maybe I'm missing it somewhere. But even so, you would think that would be right there. But anyway, here it is. 1 is 1, 2 is 4, 3 is 9, 4 is 16. A lot of points there. The game ends when the deeds or the debts have been taken. Once those are done, you play out the final scoring. Person with the most points at the end of the game wins the game. Before we do that though, the last couple phases are this. That would be, so those are the main actions. Then you have collision. If your fate markers meet, or excuse me, your corruption markers, your bless marker, whatever it's called, meet, they'll crash. And then certain things happen. You can look at that phase there and find out what happens. It's not a lot, but that collision happens. And last but not least, you can recruit one of these cards out here. When you do, it goes to your discard pile. Then you draw back up to your hand limit, and then it's the next person's turn. That's how you play Viscounts of the West Kingdom. So that's it. It's fairly straightforward when it is, but when it's not, it's not. And by that I mean there's a lot of card symbols. Once you get them, they make sense though. It's funny because it doesn't boil down to that many choices. In fact, it's almost automatic, the game, because not automatic in a pejorative sense, but the fact that you can't ignore a lot of things. Like when something says you move this many spaces, it's not up to 3, it's you move 3 spaces. When it's you get a card benefit, it's you have to take that benefit unless specified. I think that's pretty interesting. So let's break down art. Obviously the game looks good. It's that North Sea art that we've been seeing for 6, 7, 8 years now. It's so good. It doesn't need to change. It really doesn't. I love that style. I think it's fantastic. It's unique. It's in its own system. It looks super good. So I'm a huge fan of the art first and foremost. I love the way the rondelle looks. I love the way the art and art design looks, that you're going to these different little villages or these fiefs or whatever you would call them as a Viscount, and you're checking out kind of what's going on in your little slice of the kingdom, right? I mean, as the hierarchy goes. You're seeing how things are going. What I love, and again, I'm totally reading into the game theme here. It may not be there, it may not be the designer's intent, but what I love is you do have to recruit thieves in your deck of cards, because your deck of cards represents kind of who's in your kingdom or who's in your little fiefdom. So you may have some unsavory characters in your fiefdom. You may have the best of the best, but sometimes you're going to have characters that you just wish weren't there. So I like how that's represented in the fact that you will take corruption, even though the card's kind of good. But also, sometimes you have to play a card. I like that it forces you to choose a card that you're going to have to play, even if you don't want to play it. Tough. You got to play that card. So I think, all in all, as we back up for a second, think about the mechanics of this game. It is card driven, but it's card driven in a really smart way. I love that sliding tableau of cards. I love how you get the benefits listed on the cards, plus when they rotate off, they're going to do something. I love when you get the card, it's going to do something. I love that it takes the push and pull mechanics of deeds and debt from the West Kingdom series, but it does something better. This is by far, I like this way better than Architects of the West Kingdom. Haven't played Paladin, so I don't know. And that's not to say Architects is bad. I just enjoyed this one so much more. I think this is a really smart game. It's great to see a rondelle come back in a way that works and makes sense with kind of action selection. So kudos to the designers on this. I really like this one. Viscounts is really good at staying in the collection. I like that just it has so much choosiness to it. About, could I play this card now, or should I wait and play this card? Or if I play this card, I have to hold off to get this card out of my hand. How do I get this card out of my hand? I just really like this one, and I think you'll like it too. Viscounts at the West Kingdom is the second best game in the whole West Kingdom North Sea. If you take Scythia out, West Kingdom North Sea series to me, I think is the second best one. So that's high praise, because you know I love Raiders of the North Sea and big fan of that. But I'm Bryan Drake here on the Dice Tower. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, etc. at Dice Tower Bryan. Until next time, we'll see you.